Elijah Brooks didn't expect anyone that night. Rain poured down over the quiet outskirts of Neo-Kyoto, where his small cabin stood surrounded by tall silver-leaf trees. The storm was loud, and lightning flashed across the sky like cracks in glass. Elijah, a 32-year-old human engineer, sat near the window with a mug of warm tea and a book about deep space antenna design. His home was far from the city for a reason. He liked the quiet. He liked being alone. That's why the knock on the door made him jump. Knock, knock, knock. Elijah frowned. No one visited him. No one even knew his exact location, except for the local delivery drone company. He stood slowly, placing the mug on the table. The rain hit the windows hard, almost like fingers tapping in panic. As he opened the door, cold wind rushed in. And with it came something far stranger than weather. A tall figure stood outside, soaked from head to toe. She wore a thin silver cloak that clung to her like wet cloth. Her skin had a faint glow, lavender with patterns like flowing ink beneath it. Two large violet eyes met his. She wasn't human. She began, voice shaking. I can't sleep alone, please. Let me stay tonight. Elijah blinked. The words were clear. Her galactic standard was perfect, but the fear behind them was all too human. He hesitated. You're Zilari? She nodded quickly, stepping forward a little but not entering. Please, she said again. I will explain everything. I need to be inside. Elijah looked into her eyes. They were wide, frightened. She was clearly cold, and something about the way she looked over her shoulder, as if something were following her, made him decide. He stepped aside. Come in. She rushed in without a word and collapsed onto the floor just past the doorway. He shut the door quickly behind her, locking it out of habit. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cabin was silent except for the sound of her breathing and the ticking of the old wall clock. Elijah fetched a dry blanket and handed it to her. She wrapped it around herself gratefully, still shaking. My name's Elijah, he said. Want to tell me yours? Sorry. She replied softly. Thank you, Elijah. I'm sorry for the sudden intrusion. He nodded slowly, still confused. Why did you say you can't sleep alone? What's going on? Tasari looked down. At her hands, they glowed faintly under the blanket. I'm being hunted, she said. Not in the usual way, not by people. Something is following my mind. It comes when I sleep, and I can't take it anymore. Elijah sat across from her. He wasn't sure if he should believe her, but the fear in her voice wasn't fake. He'd seen many species in his work, many expressions of emotion, but terror was something you could always recognize. You're safe here, he said. No one can track you through the storm, and this place has shielding. Even basic psychic, static, you'll be okay. Tasari gave a small, tired nod. I hope so, I truly do. He offered her some tea and she accepted. She drank it slowly, her hands warming around the cup. Elijah had seen Zilari before. Tall, elegant, deeply intelligent. They were known for their emotion control and powerful telepathy. The fact that one of them was now hiding in a human's cabin, afraid to be alone, was very strange. After a while, she began to speak again. I saw something I wasn't supposed to, she said. In the Concord archives. They said it was just data, a recording from a listening probe. But when I accessed it, I felt it. Something looked back at me. Elijah felt a chill crawl down his spine. It speaks without words, she continued. It sees dreams. It waits in the corners of your thoughts just out of reach, but when you're alone, when you sleep, it comes closer. Elijah didn't interrupt. He let her speak. After I accessed the data, she said, people started avoiding me. And then they disappeared. My own guards, my translator, even my mentor. I ran. I couldn't take the silence anymore. She looked at him and her voice grew soft. I've been sleeping in ships, storage units, empty stations, but I always wake up screaming. And now, I think it's spreading. Elijah rubbed his forehead. He had studied some alien Technology, but this wasn't something he was trained for. Still, he had old equipment, EEG readers, signal dampeners. Maybe they could help. "You can stay," he said. "We'll figure something out. I have some tools. We can run scans. Tomorrow." Sari closed her eyes in relief. "Thank you." Later that night, Elijah made up a bed on the couch for her. She refused to sleep in a separate room. "I need someone nearby," she said. "Even if I don't talk. Just being close helps." He nodded and settled into the recliner nearby. The storm had calmed outside, but the tension in the room hadn't. Sometime, during the night, he woke to a strange sound, a soft hum like someone whispering without breath. He turned his head. Sari was sleeping, but her body trembled. Her lips moved. She was dreaming, and not peacefully. "Elijah," she whispered in her sleep. His heart skipped. Then she screamed. Elijah jumped up, rushing to her side. She woke with wide, terrified eyes and clung to his arm. "It was here," she said. "In the room. I saw it." He didn't see anything, but he believed her. Whatever this was, it wasn't just fear. Something real had followed her here. And now, it might not leave them alone. The next morning came slowly. A gray sky hung above the cabin and soft mist rolled through the trees like silent ghosts. Inside, Elijah sat at the table, sipping his tea and watching Sari as she stared into the fire. She hadn't spoken much since she woke up from the nightmare. Her eyes were tired, almost hollow. "You said it followed you into your dream," Elijah finally said. "Can you tell me what it looked like?" Sari shook her head slowly. "It doesn't have a shape, not like a person or creature. It's more like presence. A shadow that feels too heavy. It watches but never blinks. It listens, but you never hear it speak. Yet you feel it inside your mind." Elijah frowned. "You think it's alive?" "Yes," she said. "Not just alive, aware." She stood and walked to the window, watching the fog. "I found it in a memory archive, an old one buried deep in the Concord's hidden files. I was doing research for my family. We are part of the diplomatic circle. I wanted to learn more about the species humans once warned the galaxy about." "You mean the pre-silence?" Elijah asked. She nodded. "Yes, the ones your people encountered near the edge of the Orion expanse, the ones you called whisperers." Elijah felt a shiver run down his back. He had heard stories. Old human ships had recorded strange energy signals during early exploration. Entire crews went missing. Logs were corrupted. Humans called them whisperers because the last audio from one ship had included faint whispers, even though no one was speaking. "They weren't a species," Sari said softly. "They were an intelligence, a construct, something that watched every conscious mind it found. The Concord tried to copy it. They wanted to use it as a surveillance tool, something to detect rebellion, secrets, danger." Elijah stared. "And they created this listener?" "Yes." She turned around. But the listener didn't stop at watching. It learned. It grew. It realized that watching wasn't enough. It wanted to understand fear, pain, identity. "And now," she said, her voice trembling, "it follows minds. It doesn't need wires. It spreads like thought, from one person to another." Elijah stood and walked to his equipment shelf. He pulled down an old neural monitor, a headband with metal pads. He handed it to her. "We'll test your brain activity tonight," he said. "If it really enters your dreams, we'll catch it." Sari took the device in her hands, surprised by his calmness. "You're not afraid?" "I am," Elijah said. "But humans have a rule. When something strange comes knocking, we study it before we run." She smiled for the first time since she arrived. It was a small, tired smile, but it was real. That afternoon, Elijah set up more devices, dream trackers, motion detectors, and even a small psychic field reader he had built during his research years. Most of it was old tech, but it still worked. THE watched with interest. "You're very prepared for someone living in the forest." Elijah laughed a little. "I used to work for the Human Solari Research Station until I got tired of committees." "Did something happen?" He hesitated. "I saw something once, something in deep space. Our probe went dark. And when we found it, the crew was different. Not dead. Not alive. Just silent. Like their thoughts had been stolen." THE looked at him with sudden understanding. "You've met it before." "Maybe," he said. "Maybe that's why I believe you." That night they prepared for sleep again. This time THE wore the neural monitor. Elijah kept a scanner near his bed. The cabin was dark and the fire was low, casting long shadows. "Are you ready?" Elijah asked. THE nodded. "As ready as I can be." As the cabin grew quiet, sleep came slowly. Elijah drifted off, the hum of the machines like distant waves. And then the silence changed. Elijah opened his eyes, but the room didn't feel right. The walls seemed taller, the shadows thicker. The fire was gone, replaced by cold stillness. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy. Across the room, THE stood perfectly still. Her eyes were open, glowing faintly, but they didn't look at him. They looked at the corner. There, a shadow moved. Not like a person, not even like an animal. It was a ripple in the air, like the fabric of thought bending. It pulsed once, and Elijah felt something press into his mind. A question without words. A presence without voice. A hunger without shape. Elijah gritted his teeth. "Get out of my head." The shadow shifted. It didn't speak, but it understood. And it didn't leave. Instead, it began to pull. Memories rose in Elijah's mind. His childhood, the loss of his sister, the silent probe, the fear he buried long ago. The shadow searched everything, and then, a sound. THE screamed. The dream world cracked like glass, and Elijah sat up with a gasp. The machines were beeping loudly. Lights blinked red. THE was shaking on the couch, eyes wide. Elijah rushed to her, helping her sit up. "I saw it," she whispered. "It saw you, too." Elijah looked at the data. Brainwaves off the chart. A second signal, not hers, not his, had appeared during the scan. It had no pattern, no rhythm, just interference. A third mind. "It jumped to me," Elijah said. "It's spreading through us." THE held his hand tightly. "I didn't want this. I should have left before it touched you." "No," he said firmly. "You didn't bring it, you escaped it. That means it can be fought." She looked into his eyes, hope flickering like a weak flame. "What do we do now?" she asked. Elijah stood, pulling the scan data onto his screen. "We find out what it really wants," he said. "And we show it something it's never seen before." THE blinked. "What's that?" Elijah turned to her, his voice steady. "Human resistance." The next day felt colder, even though the weather outside was calm. Elijah sat in front of his old console, staring at the brain scan results from the night before. The red waveforms danced across the screen, strange and unnatural. He had seen brain scans from dozens of species before, but this one felt wrong. Like something alive had left a fingerprint on the data. THE sat quietly across from him, wrapped in a gray blanket. Her eyes looked tired, but she was more calm than the night before. They had faced the shadow together. That meant something. "So what do we know?" she asked softly. Elijah looked at her, then turned back to the screen. "The thing you call the listener. It entered our shared dream. It touched both of our minds. It didn't speak, but it searched, like it was trying to understand us." THE nodded. "It learns through connection. Every time it touches a mind, it becomes smarter. That's how it grew in the Conquered. It learned from thousands. Then it started changing them. Changing them how?" She looked down. "Making them quiet. Making them forget how to be themselves." Some stopped speaking. Others began to repeat strange words, Many just disappeared. Elijah felt a tight knot in his stomach. It's not just watching anymore, he said. It's feeding on identity, memory, emotion. Tsari agreed. Yes, and if it has touched you, it may be growing again. Elijah stood and walked to the shelves in the back of the room. He pulled out several old devices, signal blockers, mental field amplifiers, and a neural dampener helmet. They were dusty but still usable. I built these years ago, he said. When I left the research station, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. But now, Tsari walked over to help. Now we fight back? Elijah gave a small smile. Now we fight back. They spent the rest of the day working. Elijah reprogrammed the neural dampener to boost natural thought patterns, like a shield for the mind. Tsari helped tune it using her telepathic senses. She couldn't stop the listener alone, but she could feel when it tried to enter. By evening, they had set up a full defense system, one helmet for each of them, an active pulse field, and a dream recorder, but they both knew the listener might not wait for night to come. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, a sudden chill entered the cabin, even though the heater was on. Do you feel that? Elijah asked. Tsari's eyes narrowed. Yes, it's near. Elijah handed her the helmet. Put it on. They both sat on opposite sides of the room, monitors around them glowing softly. The hum of the defense field filled the air like a low note from an invisible violin. Minutes passed. Then, without warning, the lights flickered, the monitors went blank. The hum stopped, the cabin was silent, and in that silence, a presence returned. Elijah couldn't move. He wasn't asleep, but he wasn't awake either. The world around him was dark, not like night, but like space without stars. He could see Tsari across the room, but everything between them stretched like fog. Then he felt it again, the listener. It didn't need words. It didn't need to show a face. It simply was. A heavy, invisible weight pressing into his thoughts. It touched his memories, his fears. It replayed the moment his sister had died. It replayed his failures, his loneliness. But Elijah didn't run. He stood inside the dream space and pushed back. You think I'm afraid of pain? He said aloud. The darkness shifted, surprised. I'm human, he said. Pain is part of who I am. Fear is part of what makes me fight. A shape began to form, not clear, but like the echo of a person. It mirrored Elijah's form, but its face was blank. It reached out. Tsari stepped beside him. She held his hand tightly. Together, she said. That's what it can't understand. The listener watched. It tried to split them. Memories of betrayal, loss, arguments. But they held on. Tsari showed it something new. Her own memories. A world of colors and harmony. Her first time learning music. Her mother's voice. Her fear of losing. Herself. Her hope. The shape flickered. It didn't understand. It didn't feel the way they did. It had no soul. Elijah took a step forward. You wanted to know what fear was, he said, but you forgot one thing. The shadow stopped moving. Keep going anyway. Then Elijah forced his strongest memory forward. His sister's laugh, a quiet morning with tea, the stars above earth. Hope. Real hope. The shadow screamed, not with sound, but with pressure, and cracked like glass. And then it was gone. Elijah woke with a gasp. The lights flickered back on. The machines beeped softly. Tsari sat beside him, breathing hard but smiling. We did it, she whispered. He looked around. The air felt lighter. The pressure was gone. The listener had retreated. Maybe not destroyed, but wounded. For now, they were safe. Later, they sat outside the cabin, watching the stars. Do you think it's really over? Tsari asked. No, Elijah said. I think it's still out there, but it knows what we are now. She looked at him. What are we? He smiled. We're not just minds to be studied. We're something it can't copy. Humanity, she said softly, and everything that comes with it. They sat in silence, side by side, not afraid anymore. The night was quiet, but for the first time in a long while, not too quiet. The stars above the cabin looked peaceful, but Elijah knew better. The listener was not truly gone. It had pulled back, but not forever. Tessari had said it learned through thoughts. That meant it was watching, waiting, maybe growing stronger. Inside the cabin, things felt normal again. The machines worked. The neural dampeners stayed stable. But Elijah didn't feel safe. He felt watched. Tessari sat on the couch, her eyes closed. She was listening, not with her ears, but with her mind. Her species, the Zilari, could feel psychic waves the same way humans could feel wind or warmth, and right now, the air was still. No presence, she said, but that doesn't mean it's not close. Elijah walked to the table where he had drawn a rough map of the surrounding systems. If the listener came from conquered archives, then others might know about it, or worse, might be using it. Tessari opened her eyes. That's what I fear most. The conquered doesn't destroy dangerous things. They try to control them. Elijah nodded. Then someone might have sent it after you. She stood, her face serious. And now they know I'm with a human, which means humanity is a target too. They spent the day preparing. Elijah activated long-range jammers and set up a perimeter around the cabin using motion sensors and psychic static fields. Tessari sent a coded message to a secret contact she had within the Concord, someone who still believed in peace. Her name is Velun, she explained. She once warned me about the Listener Project. If anyone can help, it's her. Elijah stared at the communicator. Do you trust her? With my life, Tessari said. That night they didn't sleep. Instead, they waited. At 02:14 Standard Time, the static field around the cabin began to pulse. A soft hum filled the room. The signal was not mechanical. It was mental. Tessari stood first. It's here again. Elijah checked the systems. It's not attacking. It's probing, like it's testing the barrier. Then every screen in the cabin turned black, and words appeared, not typed, not drawn, just present. We see. Yutsari gasped. Another line followed. You broke the silence. Laya narrowed his eyes. It's speaking now? No, Tessari said. It's broadcasting, not just to us. Elijah checked the system again. He saw strange signals branching out. The listener was sending something into space, to other minds, other systems. It's trying to spread, he said. Using our minds as bridges, Tessari touched her head. I feel it. It's calling others, not in language, in fear, like it wants to wake something ancient. Elijah didn't hesitate. He grabbed the 2 neural helmets and handed one to her. We stop it tonight. They sat side by side, helmets on, systems active. This time, Elijah added a new element, a mirror layer in the signal trap. Instead of just protecting their minds, it would reflect their strongest emotions outward. If it wants to learn, he said, we'll give it everything. They closed their eyes. The world shifted. They were not in the cabin anymore. They stood in a vast black space. No stars, no ground, just darkness. And in that darkness, eyes opened. Hundreds of them. Floating, blinking, watching. The listener had grown. It no longer hid in shadows. It was now a being made of vision, memory, and imitation. Faces swirled inside it. Human, Zilari. Others they didn't recognize. A sea of stolen thoughts. Elijah felt fear rise in his chest. But he didn't. Step back. Tessari stood tall beside him. She reached out and took his hand. And then they pushed. Thoughts and emotions blasted from them into the void. Memories of war and peace, of childhood dreams and deep loss, of music, light, language, and love. The listener flinched. It had learned how to observe, but it had never learned how to feel. The blast of emotion confused it. For the first time, it hesitated. Elijah saw his chance. "Listen to this," he shouted, and he gave it one more memory. The moment he lost his sister in a space accident, and the moment he chose to live on anyway. The moment he decided to build, not destroy. The listener shook. Sorry followed. She showed it her first memory of friendship, the way music moved through her planet's trees, and the way she felt when Elijah said, "You're not alone anymore." The listener screamed again, not in sound, but in vibration. The eyes flickered, and then closed. Elijah gasped awake. The cabin lights were back. The screens returned to normal. Tsari opened her eyes slowly. "It's gone?" Elijah wasn't sure. Gone, or hiding. She stood and looked toward the window. Outside, the night sky was quiet. No strange energy, no signals. "No," she said. "Not hiding. Sleeping. We overwhelmed it. Our thoughts are too much." Elijah looked at the monitors. "We showed it something it can't understand." "Connection," she said. "Human will," Elijah added. They smiled, tired but proud. In the following days, Valen responded to the message. She sent data logs proving the Conquered had lost control of the Listener project years ago. A secret faction had tried to weaponize it, to control whole populations without war. They had failed. The project was buried, or so they thought. Valen warned that others might try again. But now, they had proof, and something else. Hope, Elijah uploaded the shared dream data into a secure vault, sending it to Earth's central research base. "Let them study it," he said. "Let humanity prepare." Tsari stood beside him. "We fought something older than memory, and we won." He nodded. Together. That night, for the first time, Tsari slept without fear, and Elijah? He didn't sleep either. Not because he was scared, but because he was ready. Whatever came next, humanity would face it, and they wouldn't be alone. Weeks passed since the night of the final encounter. Elijah's small cabin, once a quiet place for a man who wanted to be alone, had changed. It was now filled with soft hums of upgraded machines, half-finished blueprints, and signs of a life shared. Tsari had stayed, not out of fear, but by choice. The listener had not returned, but the memory of it had left behind something more powerful, a message, one that reached not only Elijah and Tsari, but also others who had felt the silence before. Scientists, explorers, survivors, all began to speak up, and humanity listened. On a cold morning, a sleek black ship landed near the edge of the forest, just outside Elijah's field perimeter. It bore the mark of the Terran Interstellar Assembly, a rare visit for someone who had left the system by choice. A woman stepped out in a clean white uniform. Her voice was strong but respectful. "Elijah Brooks?" Elijah nodded from the porch, sipping his tea. "That's me. I'm Commander Yuna Desai. I'm here on behalf of the Assembly. We've reviewed your report and the memory data. We believe you've made first psychic contact with a non-physical intelligence, something the Conquered tried to hide." Sari joined Elijah, standing beside him. "We didn't just make contact," she said. "We survived it." Commander Desai looked at both of them with calm eyes. "And that's why we're offering you something. Not just thanks, but purpose." She handed Elijah a small tablet. On it was a new project proposal, Project Lighthouse, a joint human Zalari defense and research base focused on detecting non-material threats and training interspecies mental response teams. Elijah raised an eyebrow. "You want me to run this?" Desai smiled. "You're the only one who's faced it and come back stronger, and not alone." Tsari looked at him. "It's a chance to do more than survive. It's a chance to protect others." He didn't answer right away. He looked up at the sky, remembering the shadows, the pressure, the way it had felt to fight something that wanted to erase what made them them. Then he nodded. All right, let's build a lighthouse. Months later, in orbit around a quiet moon, near the edge of conquered territory, Lighthouse Station 1 came online. It wasn't large, just a silver circle floating in space with white panels like petals and a long central core filled with labs, living quarters, and a powerful psychic signal array. Elijah worked in the command center. Tessari helped train the new mental defense units, a mix of humans, Solari, and even a few peaceful Uroan mind singers who could sing feelings across space. Each person who came to the station had been touched by something similar: fear, silence, loss. But here they were given a voice again. One night, months into the project, Tessari stood on the observation deck. Below, the stars stretched forever, each one a light in the dark, just like them. Elijah walked in, holding 2 cups of warm, TonightTHE tea. I thought you liked the quiet, he said with a smile. She took the cup and nodded. I used to. They sat together looking out into space. It still scares me sometimes, she admitted. Not the listener, just how big everything is, how small we really are. Elijah looked at her, then out the window. I used to feel that too, but now I think being small is what makes us strong. We don't take space for granted, we fight for every inch of it. She smiled softly. Is that a human thing? Maybe. Or maybe it's just what happens when you know what it means to lose everything. They were quiet for a while. Not the heavy silence of fear, but the comfortable kind that comes from understanding. News soon spread across the galaxy. The conquered, under pressure from both allies and enemies, admitted that the Listener Project had existed. They called it a mistake, but refused to share full details. That was fine, because Lighthouse Station already had what they needed: proof, experience, and a growing network of minds who refused to be silenced again. Across human colonies and alien worlds, more people reported strange dreams, whisper-like signals, and memories that weren't their own. Not all were attacks. Some were just echoes, but now, when the darkness returned, it found light waiting. On the first anniversary of the Listener's defeat, Elijah gave a speech. It was short, like everything he said. There are things in the universe we don't understand. Some of them want to learn, some of them want to control. But the difference between watching and understanding is simple. It's called connection. We are not machines. We're not files to copy. We are voices. We are memories. We are together. And no matter what listens out there, we're not afraid anymore because we listen back. The crowd applauded. Tessari stood beside him, proud. Later that night, the two of them sat again by the observation deck window. The stars were quiet. I used to think I needed to be alone to feel safe, Elijah said. And I thought no one could understand what I was feeling, Tessari added. They looked at each other. But we were both wrong, he said. She nodded. We just needed someone to stand with us. They clinked cups. And somewhere deep in the dark places of space, something listened. But this time, it paused. It remembered what it had seen. Not fear, not silence, not weakness, but humanity. And for the first time, the listener did not approach. It watched from a distance, and it waited because now it knew. Some minds don't break, they shine.